Where's the love? Where's the love? Is right here in the heart of the city. I'm Silas Grant. I got my man with me.
What's up, Joe?
Tony Lewis told me do it. Yeah, you heard that in a while.
Hey,
Lewis told me do it, man. Yeah.
people summons me, man.
Yeah. Tony Lewis told me do it,
Oh
man.
man, yes sir, man. What's up, man?
I'm all right, man. Yeah, just
Month of May.
month of May, man.
You know that big day.
I'm about to say,
Hey. Hey, man.
yeah.
28th. Everybody be on notice, man.
Uh-huh.
Hey, 45 ain't like no seminal birthday though, is it?
I mean,
That's every birthday is. I don't mean it like that, but you know, like them. What they call them milestone.
yeah, milestone, monumental. I think it is. I
Okay.
think it is.
Okay.
Yeah, I would consider it to be that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so because I think 50 is such a big one
Yeah.
that 45 is like the last stop.
Young jump.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just. Yeah.
What's funny? Shout out to my man Black Boo, man, Alfred Duncan.
Yeah. Shout
He
out
turned
to Boo.
50
Happy
recently.
belated, man.
Yeah. So when I saw that, this one it really punched me in the face, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, dang, Black 50.
Yeah,
And I
ain't
text him, right? And I was like, happy birthday. And I was like, man, I'm paraphrasing right now, but I said to him, like, man, keep looking and acting young.
Yeah.
Because I would never look at him as being 50. And that hit me like, dang, we all about to be 50 in a little while.
son. Y'all old as shit. son.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, man.
Y'all, not me, but not for real. For real. But you know what? I think too, speaking of like Boo, like look at Boo 50, man.
In the
You know
gym
what I'm
every
saying?
day.
Yeah, bro. And you know what I mean? I think that's what is that's the and you know, we had a conversation the other day just about sort of what age represents today or what folks we know versus back in the day. And yeah, it's a little different. You know what I mean? But I think people have learned from generations past. My grandmother, man, who used to always say that to me, like in terms of like, you young as you think. You know what I'm saying? You gotta,
That's true.
even, you know, when she used to be hanging out, talking to the around our way on the block, you know, even some of the women that I thought was closer in age to her, because they used to act
Yeah.
older, if you know, that's the thing. But I couldn't believe they were, you know, that much younger than her, but you wouldn't know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so man, yeah, that's man. But anyway,
I started, I walk every day, but like I started on Sundays when I'm able to, started walking with this group. It's a group of black men that walk in Rock Creek Park.
yeah, yeah.
And they're called the Rock Creek Power Walkers, right? So I walk every day, but I'm definitely not a speed walker by a long shot, right? So Chanel Smoke, he got me involved in it. So Smoke and I are not by far, let me not say that, probably a good 8 years to 10 years younger than everybody out there, right? Man, we walked Sunday, we came in last place. Like we were the last two guys. These guys in their early 50s, mid 50s, 60s. The oldest guys are like 75. And the main coordinator is like 67. And he's a wealth of knowledge around health and rejuvenation. And he was talking to Smoke and I after everybody left. And he made this comment and he gave us this phrase to think about: physical dignity. And he was like, that's his goal, is to maintain as long as he can physical dignity. And this is a guy who is really in shape at 67. And a lot of guys in that pack that we walk with, they getting after it.
Yeah.
And the thing I think about is, in this competitive,
How does he define physical dignity though?
so
Is it like
so what he talks about,
being active?
I mean, what he talks about is essentially, being able to be independent totally,
Yeah.
taking care of yourself, being in a position where even in your 60s, understanding that it's not just about getting to 60, but what do you do when you get there? So a lot of us might be like, man, I'm trying to be around when I get 60. Okay, well, are you going to burn yourself out to get there? Or are you gonna pace it so that you doing the investment, but then when you get there, there's even more to do. So there's some people who are 67 and they're like in relatively okay shape, but for him, it's like heavyweight training.
Yeah.
It's about a lot of things to like take the next 20 years from 67 to 87 and make that the biggest that it can be.
Yeah, because I'm telling you, bro, I think about that. Like, I have been thinking a lot more about just like my mortality, if you will.
Uh-huh.
You know, because I mean, black men, we die faster than anything on this earth. And so, that's important. I want to be around, but also the physical. I ask that because that's important too, dog. If I can't wipe my ass and all that, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Now, seriously, I'm trying to. If I can't be who I am, I ain't really trying to be around a whole long time after that. Like, God forbid I have like some type of, you know what I'm saying though.
Exactly.
Yeah, I ain't trying to live like that. I ain't straight up.
And-
And I'm gonna share that with my wife and my kids. Like, I've shared it with Jess. We talk like, for real. Let me roll out. I want to be me. If I can't be me, I ain't.
Because what happens for me, I've been walking with them off and on the last maybe 3 or 4 months, and we walk about 5 miles, and we do it in maybe about an hour and 10 minutes, hour and 15 minutes, something like that, right? And what happens, we start in like a pack of maybe like 15 or 20 all together.
Yeah.
Then everybody kind of get their natural pace, right? And I've been able to not sit, but walk with different older gentlemen in those walks, and just the knowledge that they pass on to me in that hour and 15 minutes has now got me thinking about 20 years from now more than I have, or differently than I have before. My point in saying that is, I don't know that we have enough outlets for us as black men to really sit and be comfortable enough and open enough to listen and receive and give information like that. Because I'm not going to lie to you, the last 3 or 4 months being around them is really transformed how I think now.
Yeah.
Just in that short period of time. And that alone, being in their presence and like just being able to listen. Because you and I, we always pouring into everybody else. Sure. They pour into me when I'm in that space with them. So that's what I benefit from more than anything in this recent time. It's just being under their sort of umbrella of wisdom and them giving me information that, all right, you probably wouldn't have thought about that till you got to be 67.
Yeah.
Otherwise.
Nah, for sure. And it's like one of them things where a group of older black men walking in Rock Creek Park, to me, that screams like successful black men too.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is but part of that success, part of that being in a certain economic class, I mean, things of that nature also that comes with, vitality, and a lot of more times than not, you're gonna live longer than somebody growing up in communities like the ones we come from. You know what I'm saying? All that stuff matters, man. And it's like they got the keys. They know they can tell you how they got there, what they do. So that's dope. And then that you can come back and share that with, dudes like me, you know what I'm saying? But not for real. That you can share it amongst your group. You know what I mean? That's the beauty of getting certain information too, bro. Like being able to then disperse it. I was actually to this point too about sort of like being active in your later years. I just read an article randomly today in the Washington Post about some Korean divers, right? It's like a little island or something off of Korea that they pretty much studying these divers, and most of them are women. They say at this point, majority of them are women in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. They go dive every day, 60 feet deep for sea urchin. I ain't talking about with no oxygen joint. I'm talking about dive, holding their breath.
They raw dogging it.
Telling you. And what they saying is the occurrence, the stroke rate there is incredibly low. And so they're saying that when you hold your breath, for how they've been accustomed to, they start diving in like, as children, right? So they've been doing this, that's their work. They've been doing this their whole life. That your cells, when it can't get oxygen, the body normally are like basically hyperventilate
and panic.
right, and panic. But they just been able with their body. It says like they're living like natural selection, like Darwin's theory of natural selection, where they found a way to like equal out. And so they want to study their cells to be able to potentially create medicine that could treat stroke and treat high blood pressure.
Right.
And I was reading this like incredible. They were saying these people they had pictures, 87 years old, go and die for sea urchin every day. Can you imagine that? And the reporter was literally saying like it took her a while to really almost like am I watching these old ladies do this? She's just cause she said she couldn't believe it. But they got their what you call it, physical dignities. Think about that. They active but they were saying that, just like they that was something that island, that group of people, did. But that just like anything else, the younger generation, not too many of them. So that's why the elders got to continue to do it. But it also shows you some of the limitations we think. Again, it's a mindset thing too. If you think in America, they teach you, in your 70s, you're supposed to be in your rocking chair. You know what I'm saying? I think that's shifting a little bit, right? You know what I mean? I think it's, we talking about the 40-year-olds are much more active, the 50-year-olds, the 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds, whatever. I think that's becoming more of a thing where people ain't no twilight. You know what I mean? You got to lay this thing all the way through, man.
Yeah, I heard once that death presents itself when you have an accelerated pursuit of comfort. So you talked about the rocking chair. When you start giving yourself so much comfort, whether it be I got to find a place to sit, or I'm going to drive everywhere I go, or, I've got to eat for pleasure every time I have a meal. When you find yourself on that path of the accelerated pursuit of comfort, that's when death presents itself.
Yeah. And you kind of, especially, you work hard, right? In many cases, people work hard, man. They work, but it's like, but even if you're talking about like retirement and stuff like that, but like, I think we got to really rethink what that's supposed to look like. It's just like that's supposed to be more of a time for freedom, more time to be active, more time to, you know what I mean? Instead of just, pure relaxation. And then relaxation don't feel as good when you ain't what you relaxing from. If you're not, you know what I mean, vacationing, anything. And too much of anything can be, dangerous, if you will. Yeah, man. But I know one thing. I'm like approaching 45. One thing I keep thinking about, and I definitely got to make some lifestyle changes, but I ain't trying to die, bro. I'm going to die, right? But I ain't trying to die no time soon, bro. I need another 40 at least. You know what I mean? When I get about 85, I'm ready to go. It'd be cool. See my youngest grow up. But I really do, bro, because I enjoy, but one thing, you know this, but one thing about me, bro, I'm going to enjoy I don't know how many days or whatever, but I'm going to do them, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, and I think that's part of it, too, when it's not just about existing, you know what I mean? It's about living, so when them dudes getting up there, them old dudes or older dudes getting out there, you know what I'm saying, on Sundays and speed walking and all that and whatever else they doing in between Sunday to Sunday, that's them saying, man, they living. Yeah.
They wake up with the same fire that somebody that's 25 is waking up with as far as competing and looking to add value to the world and get what the value brings back to you in return. And
it will.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It will. I think that is one of the things that I think I'm speaking from a very narrow lens, so I do want to preference what I'm about to say with that. I'm speaking from but what I see is like, but you mentioned it. I think black women get that, because it's so many of them that have been successful and they are more likely to reach back and share. But for black men, man, it is especially dudes coming out of a certain generation too. A lot of dudes coming out of a certain generation weren't able to get in, they work themselves to death.
Right.
You know what I mean? I remember one day, so we need to, I totally agree with you that we got to figure out how to facilitate more of that
With intention.
because dudes' grandfathers ain't that. Dudes' uncles ain't that.
It's funny you mentioned that. So we do the walking club, and my brother-in-law and my sister come out pretty frequently, and they have a grandson he's like 15 maybe.
Okay.
And sometimes my brother-in-law would just take off and run, even though we walking, right?
Right.
Just to get his run in. And my great nephew runs track at DeMatha. So it didn't hit me till maybe 2 days ago. I was like, man, I'd never seen a grandfather run with his grandson until I seen them too.
Wow. See?
A grandfather running with his grandson. I had never seen that before. I could never conceptualize
I don't even think I ever thought about
Yeah,
that.
I couldn't conceptualize it. And I'm like, man, my brother-in-law, him and his grandson, they running.
It's ice now.
I'm like, man,
It's a new
that's
data.
something that my great nephew maybe he's thinking about it, but once it really crystallizes for him, that's going to be a lasting memory. I ran with my grandfather on a regular basis.
Me and my grandfather used to go running together.
Used to go running together. Yeah.
Yeah, bruh. But that's a new, like,
Yeah.
excuse me. Yeah.
Bless you.
And I think that's deep for real.
Yeah, I was parking the other day and I thought about it. I was like,
Yeah.
man, they run together.
Yeah, Slim.
So yeah, I mean, to your point, the question, yeah, I think 45 is a seminal moment, a seminal milestone year. And I think that it is, like I said, the last stop before 50. And then the other thing on a more serious note though, I've had a couple of friends lose parents in the last week or two, right? And just been talking to them about that. And the shift is really happening. We are becoming the elders.
Yeah, dog.
We're on the front end of that eldership, but nonetheless, we opening the door. And I've heard some stories of other people having some hardships and things that come along with when you live life long enough. And I think that you have to be prepared physically, mentally, spiritually for the shift, because this is that point where some people might tinker off the ship a little bit.
Yeah.
If they not really ready for what is next. And now you the person people relying on versus you were always relying on somebody that was an elder previously.
Yeah, people got to be ready for that. I mean, some of us have been thrust into that, sooner than others, but it happens. Like, to your point, it's life, right? That's what, that those shifts happen. One of the things that I would share or just as a note for people, as much as you can in the moments, I pray that in your friend situation, but just across the board, that in the moments, man, that brings families closer versus, breaking them apart. And a lot of times, those people that pass on are the glue. You know what I mean? They are the glue. And so, I hope families can find a way to stay connected when the glue go. Yeah. You know what I mean? Some of us got to become the new glue. And sometimes you might got to be a little more intentional about, connecting. You understand what I'm saying? And like one of the things I've been thinking about a lot too is, because of technology, right? You sometimes can go a long time without seeing people, but you don't feel like it.
I mean, we just saw Anwar outside.
Yeah, exactly.
And I can't tell you the last time I saw him,
but I don't feel like I haven't seen him in a long time.
Exactly.
Because you see them, right? And subconsciously, it's like, you didn't physically see them. You know what I'm saying? And it's been, and there's all like a lot of, obviously there's been a lot of talk about AI and its presence and everything and this and that. And they just had me thinking too about, like, and this might sound wild, but like for real, like physical touch. Like we getting really distant. We close, but we distant. You know what I mean? And it's just, I think people, particularly in like we gotta start like seeing each other, bruh. Like, you know what I mean? Like that human connection, I think is imperative. And I think it is also necessary. Because if you're not careful, even my own household, like of course we there together. We close together and all that. But just sometimes you'll look and everybody on the device,
Right.
and me included.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Me included. It's like, or like, you trying to, telling my kids get off the iPad or whatever the case may be, but my phone in my hand. Do what I say, not as I do. That joke. Go to your mother. Joe's mother used to tell. My mother used to tell me, but that's not how people work. You know what I'm saying? But it's become. It's almost like these devices are like an extension of us. It's like a part of your person.
So I think I was saying this the last time we recorded. If I didn't, I'll say it now. There was a book I read about a month ago where it talked about the fact that in the near future, people are predicting that we will become sort of more one with the devices.
Yeah, sure. I mean, but then you think about like we were saying, the Neuralink joint.
Yeah.
They talking about chipping you up.
Yeah.
And you gonna have to be chipped up. Cause if you chipped up, I got to get chipped up. Man, they got Drakes. I can't this.
Yeah.
It's not, you know what I'm saying? Or they got switchies. I got to do something. Like certain. But for real, the game did change when people start getting. Think about it. Might be people walking around we don't even know right now, chipped up.
Yeah.
On some study type time. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? What was the John with Bradley? Limitless. They got the for real though, bruh.
I was in a room the other day facilitating a workshop, and I mentioned ChatGPT. And not only was it only one person in that room that had heard of it or had used it, I should say, that was the only person that had even heard of it.
Hey, Silas, you know my man D. Watkins?
Yes.
Out of Baltimore, right?
Yes.
So D got a book called, his first jump, I think, not second book, but it's like the one that blew him up, called The Beast Side.
Yeah.
Right? But the B side is it compiles a lot of his essays, and the essay that really, I think he wrote it for like the Baltimore Sun or some before the book, but Jones like too poor for pop culture.
I remember when I never read it, but I remember you telling me about it when it first came out. Yeah,
you got to read it, but just what you said, any stuff like this, that's always my reference point. Right? For like what he's unearthing in that essay is but we know that's the story when you from, ghetto America, you know what I'm saying? This is the reality. The world be happening, bro. The world be happening. And even more so today, even with access to the world, right? If you don't know what to look, you still can be left out.
So I was on the phone today with Jason Reynolds, right? We working on something together, right?
Shout out Jason.
Yeah, good guy, man. Great guy. So we were talking about some things related to literacy advocacy, which we're going to be doing together. And he talked about, in this conversation, his early experience with reading. And he talked about how mainstream American culture, white culture in particular, right? He didn't say these words, but I'm just paraphrasing right now, how mainstream white culture has determined what literacy is based on their standards and their culture, right?
For sure.
When you talk about the classics, have you
the
read
canon?
Macbeth?
Sure.
Have you read Macbeth? Have you all those things, right? Yeah. And so the way he articulated it to me, it opened my eyes today. Like, man, you know what? We have to really do a better job of broadening what it is in that space around literacy advocacy to get people to understand, yes, you read this and maybe you haven't been exposed to that, but that doesn't negate your reading experience.
Yeah, and I do want to, just for the audience that may have been under a rock or may not know who Jason Reynolds is, a homie, right? But I do, but I'm talking about the most prolific author, writer of our generation. We just happen to know him.
Yeah, just happen to know him, yeah.
I'm talking about in the country, in the world, for real. Particularly, youth literature. And not just for black boys and girls, right? But for all boys and girls.
Kids lose their mind when you say his name.
You understand what I'm saying? and got every award imaginable, and even wrote Spider-Man on the Spider-Man film, and all this stuff. You know what I'm saying? So like, and so I'm sharing that just to give some background on him, but more so, also to talk about the power in, and that just makes me excited that you and him working on this, but that coming from him, hopefully too, is gonna allow for the audience to be, for people to like hear it a little differently. Yeah, because his works, and D. Watkins as well, like what they've produced, it should be a part of the canon. It should be required reading. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, man, and that's the thing. I mean, that that shit should be like Catching the Rye, and like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, the point is that there is a divide already happening short of Neuralink, right?
Sure.
You don't even have to have the chip in you to know that there are people walking around. Now, the minority is not so much the people that are up to speed, but sometimes the people who are behind. They're the ones like in the corner they might be the few, and everybody else is accelerating, but that gap is so wide that it starts to really, you start to question, how do you exist if you're not up to speed?
Well, I mean, I think living in the District of Columbia, rather people, I mean, this is not something new for us. This is not something new that we've been talking about this forever.
Right.
But as year go on, right, that gap continues to expand as DC becomes more and more cosmopolitan, as more and more the best and the brightest flock here, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, whatever, right? The skill set gap and the education gap, which leads to the economic gap, is like the Pacific Ocean, bro.
Right.
You understand? And it's just like I said, as time go on, you start to see it. It becomes more and more evident when you look at who's housing insecure. Now, I ain't just talking about just in the sense of like, race, right? We know is mainly black people from here. We know that already. But when you start seeing the age of the homeless population is trending so young. And you think about, people say it's addiction, this mental health, but what's the purposes of that? How do they get something fueling that? It's something that's causing people to throw their hands up. Give me the Fent, give me the K2, give me the perk, give me the drink. You know what I'm saying? People giving up because there's no, like, what else is it? The requirements for jobs here, right? And not only that, even when people are able, I ain't talking about just justice involved people. Even when the social disconnect now, when people get on these jobs, like you get on these jobs and then there's like these nuances where the co-worker, when you're a native Washingtonian, young and all, the thing about the millennial, the native Washingtonian millennial, right, and where they are, and then they get on these jobs, but nobody else that work around them a native Washingtonian, or understand them. So like even things in me working in workforce development and talking to employers, sometimes things that's like not a thing are made a thing. It's just, but it's because our people just different culturally. So you are like not necessarily threatened or offended, but like something that you calling me about as a complaint. And when I talk to the person about, like, it's like, oh, that's it? That's the only thing that happened? But the way you socialize is totally different. You know what I'm saying?
And that's in the city that you're from.
That's in your hometown.
And I think that
but you a stranger
in your hometown. And I think that DC presents that differently and more frequently than most other major cities.
Absolutely.
A New Yorker is not faced with that.
Listen, a New Yorker works around other New Yorkers. Somebody native to Los Angeles works around somebody else from Los Angeles. Somebody from Philadelphia, Chicago, you can go on and on.
And the people that are in those cities they're more positioned to be in control too, from a managerial perspective.
Absolutely. right? And these are also places where people visit, or move to from all over the world. So that's why I use those places, right? But here, bro, it's people that been here 5, 6 years, don't have a 10 years. And they met Native Washingtonians for sure, but they're not friends with any. You understand? And then this other thing, I see it a lot, and this is, and when you start talking about Native Washingtonian males under 45 or under 50, as a co-worker,
you don't see them downtown.
Cuz
You don't see them. Okay. I think we took a long time to get here. This is what we really want to talk about today, right? So today is the 6th anniversary of the legislation for DC Natives Day being passed by the council, right? Correct. The mayor ended up signing it later on in the month, I think it was. Yeah. But today, May 7th, 2019, is the anniversary of that, when that happened. And that was an effort literally led by you and Angel, bringing that to the attention of the council, that it was important to highlight the contribution of DC Natives, but also to preserve a place for DC Natives in Washington, D.C.
Without question.
And to those watching, in that period, there was the go-go legislation, DC Natives legislation, and there were people that wondered why that was so important. And documentation is extremely important. Yeah. So that decades from now, generations from now, people can say somebody stopped and realized that needed to be commemorated officially.
The racial equity.
Racial equity was also in that period. So from a race perspective, from a birthplace perspective, and also culturally with the music, those pieces.
And economically.
Yep. Oh yeah. We could keep going on, right? And a lot of that was spearheaded by Kenyon McDuffie on the council side. He was a great partner to you guys, being able to merge that effort.
Absolutely.
Bringing those ideas to him, and Cam Pose with the go-go piece, and so many other people that are from here that were helping with those, respective bills. But my point is that when you talk about that segment and not seeing them in those spaces, that made that legislation even more important.
Yeah.
Because now we can look at all of the disparities and we can say there's a root, and it goes right back to typically that black male DC Native under 50.
Bro. And when
he leads the league in all those stats.
He leads the league in all those categories. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, for real, bro. And it's it really has, when you look here, and I think it's so interesting though that like people aren't more up in arms, like, and I don't know, maybe people do question, like, damn, well, why? But I know what else happens. It's very easy to blame. Oh, they must don't. With all this opportunity in DC, that's how people see it. And that's a valid, like, I get that perspective when you don't get the other things, they must just not want it. You understand what I'm saying? And so, but it is the divides here. And now, right, in this current moment, that divide might grow. You know what I mean? Because you got this heavy influx of, federal workers, federal contractors that's going to be in that same job market. You understand what I'm saying? But also I believe in, like, any tough time or anything that appears initially to be maybe negative, it's a silver lining. We just got to find it. You know what I'm saying? And so I want dudes to really understand, you don't, it's no room anymore though to be oblivious or to wait for Silas or Tony or whomever else to, like, bring that information to you. You got to have a thirst for knowledge. You got to really want to compete. And one of the things that I ain't trying to coin this phrase, but in the work we do, we always talk about who's job ready. You know what I mean? Nah, it ain't about being job ready. Who's job competitive. You know what I mean? That. There's a different standard. Job ready ain't gonna get you nowhere.
Yeah, because I think that that's a very good point because I don't, and this is an anecdotal sort of perspective, me and my own personal interactions with people who say they want a job. I don't think that they ever consider that it's a competition. They think that there's an open slot and that slot should be for me.
Yep.
And I don't fault them for that because they have not been in a market consistently to even see the competition happening.
Sure.
But we have to find a way to convey that it is a competition and that, I mean, even when we talk about the health piece, we talked about that earlier in the conversation, me going to bed at a certain time, me working out, is because when I go to that space where I'm among other people working in my same sort of sector, I'm competing with them.
Yeah.
It's not that it's not that we're fighting to the death, but I've got to show up in the best way. And so the fitness, the food modifications, all those things are in preparation for me to give the best 8 hours I can give. And I don't think that people who've not been in the market understand the value of that.
Yeah, I used to do this exercise. You know, I might when if I go over there, might do this tomorrow. I used to do musical chairs. I want to get like a lot of people, get like 4 seats. Remember, was you there when I did it
We did it over Woodland.
Yeah.
But I saw you do it at C. Sosa years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because to me, I try to use that to crystallize the job market.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But like, hey, this is just a microcosm. We talk for that one chair, if you will, that one job. It might be 1,000 people trying to get in that seat. You understand what I'm saying? Like that's the reality of will, and people got to really understand that. And one of the things that you brought up before about, you know, we were talking about like maybe here versus the mindset of somebody coming from New York. It's like that 8 million people that hustle and bustle, like it give you that little extra. You kind of see competition a little more because that's the lifestyle when you in a place.
They say, man, in New York, man, if you know, you break up with your girlfriend on the 30th floor of the high rise, she got a new boyfriend by the time she gets to the first floor.
So that's how, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a widely known joke. Yeah.
So here it's kind of, though it is, you know, still a dynamic of a competition, but it's mass. It ain't as in your face or used to be that way. But like, okay, the city has transformed though. And I think we're starting now when you talk about, again, like this influx of like people that have lost their job, you're going to start seeing that even more so where these opportunities, and that's even in business, not just on the employment end, you know what I'm saying? But even that's, you know, even to do, you got to be a high functioning person to do anything in this city, man. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to really be able to engage in, you know, because people always like it's not a either or as far as like employment versus entrepreneurship. It's both and. Like no matter what you do here.
Can we do? Because I want to ask you a question in a second, but you just saying that this is a platform that we like to use as a masterclass around thoughts and how leaders think. Sure. Can you unpack for a listener or a viewer, so what are some of the elements of high function? What are some things that you think are non-negotiable, like to consider high function? This is what you need to have.
Right. Some skill, a skill set that people are willing to pay for.
Okay.
In some way, whether it's a service that you provide or access to a product of some sort that people want. The ability to communicate effectively, meaning being able to engage with people in a way in which you can get the things done that you want to get done. The ability to actually engage cross-culture, right? To not be able to just have, now you can have a niche, but if you in this city, you can no longer only be able to deal with black people. That's, you know what I mean? So to be high functioning in this city today, in my opinion, you have to be able to cross cultures, cross class, cross race. You know what I mean? You got to have range, right? And then lastly, I would say to be a lifelong learner. to not be so rigid and dug into where you are that you stop growing, right? That you can look at a chat GPT or something of that nature and say, oh man, I don't need what I need to, I'm good. The world moving too fast, right? And I've seen so many people get comfortable, right? Because they felt like they were so established. And I mean, this upheaval in the federal government is really redefined, I think, how people have to look at whatever their roles are, whatever their positions are, that things can change. And you have to be willing and able to adapt. I mean, the whole thing about being adaptable, because those that cease to adapt cease to exist. And that's a mindset that I've always had. Like, that's a framework that I've always worked from. How do I adapt? And adaptability, though. But I think the things that I named in terms of what will make you high functioning will allow you to adapt to an ever-changing environment, bro.
I would add one thing to that. And we talked about it when Kenyon was on the show. Something he said to John and I one time. He wants people that can read well, write well, and anticipate well.
Yeah, for sure.
And reading is not just about looking at words on the paper. It's really understanding the environment, having enough respect for the fact that there could be something going on in a room you don't understand, that you pay attention enough to understand it.
How about that?
Right? The second thing is writing well. Writing well is not just about putting pen to paper or fingers to keyboard, but it's about whatever my first draft is of communication to you. Can I take a step back and look at that and say that's complete? Whatever I'm saying to you doesn't. If you have a question once I send it to you, it's a question about something in advance, not a question about what I say.
Right, yeah, you clear on what I'm
clear on what. Yeah, any questions you have are like, what's next?
Correct. But you got what
You got what I'm. I compare it to a quarterback putting the ball in the breadbasket. Right. If I'm a $100 million receiver, yes, I could catch it up here.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. But your goal is really to put it here.
Yeah, that's right.
So my communication has to be, if I define it as being effective, it's because I'm putting it in the breadbasket. I'm putting it right where you don't have any lack of clarity with it.
And it isn't something like, ain't nothing like too when you, like, I wrote a letter of support for somebody recently, and speaking of ChatGPT, he kind of alluded like, this Joe, but he knew from what I wrote in it that there's no way it could have been ChatGPT because it was personal. It wasn't like a general. It was really personal to him and our relationship. Man, I don't know if I felt so good about that. Right. And then I sent something to at work, and especially to somebody who, lawyer, writes, and was just like, and when he shared it out, he ain't do nothing to it.
Right.
I was like,
right. Yeah.
I felt good about that, man.
Just pass it right on.
But it's also about taking the time, to your, and really understanding those dynamics. Like, and that's what I'm saying. Like, this is and it wasn't nothing spectacular, nothing. It's just about, but that's what the standard here is so up there, bro.
And for the folks that are not actively in the job market on a daily basis, for the folks trying to get to high functioning, the other thing that you have to put your mind around, you have to get to the point where somebody can send you somewhere and they don't have to worry about how you present yourself or how you present in general. That letter, for an example, right? It could just be sent off as it is. Maybe some minor edits if necessary, but you have to have an appreciation and a desire. I want to be somebody that if you send me to go speak on your behalf, I got it. Yeah, man. Just put me in a room with them. I got it. And I think we don't aspire enough to reach that because we want the benefits. We want the pay. We want the house or whatever comes along with the salary. But your biggest responsibility is easing any anxiety of your manager.
That's right.
And if I got it covered, that alleviates so much pressure from the person that writes your check to pay you every 2 weeks. Yep. So to me, I think all of that kind of like rolls up into that's what high functioning really is.
And I would, and I think people got to also think about it through the lens too of like, you got to be high functioning in your household too. Like it's not really that different. You understand them same dynamics. Like you gotta be high functioning in your community, in your household, as a parent. Like that standard. I think we gotta lift the standard, man.
So small example. Today I was busy, so I couldn't get to the store, and I asked Valerie to go get a few items so I could prepare for dinner, and I told her, "Can you give me 2 avocados?" And I put in parentheses on the text, 2 avocados I can eat today.
Yeah.
Because she don't know when I want to eat the avocado.
Right.
Unless I tell her.
Right.
Anybody that loves avocados knows that there's some you gotta like let them sit for a couple of days, right? So that parentheses was me thinking like, okay, let me be very clear. I want to eat these today, so pick the ones that I can eat today. But that, if you're not communicating that clearly, something small like that could cause an argument.
Yeah. Why would you give me these hard ass avocados?
Right. That would happen. But think about the people who, in their relationships at home, they're constantly not being clear about what they want. So it's those sort of simple interactions that we take for granted that sometimes make the difference between, to your point, being high functioning even at home.
Yeah, man.
I got a question for you though, and I'm gonna tell you why I asked this question. I'm gonna ask it first though.
Okay.
We talking about now being a DC native and being attached to the standard, if there is a standard, culture of being a DC native, specifically a Black DC native. Do you ever think that holding on to those values of being a DC native, do you think that holding on to them can be a detriment? And I asked that because I was having a conversation this week about go-go.
Yeah.
And the conversation was about, a part of it was about the people who, for them, that part of DC culture was a phase. We did that when we were teens. I ain't been to see a band since I was whatever age they were.
Right.
And for some people, other elements of DC culture, whether it be the clothing lines, whether it be the certain foods you ate in the urban communities, carry out, whatever the case may be. I have seen some people maybe not articulate it specifically, but in so many ways alluded to the fact that that was a thing I did then. Yes, I'm from DC. I love DC. But most of the elements that you draw out to be the big DC culture things as a native, they look at it as a fad, or that's what I did when I was a kid. Right. And you got other people who are DC to the core, and it seems to be sometimes, in my opinion, a trend of the people who live it to a core sometimes don't always have the best outcomes.
Yeah, how about that? I mean, I think,
have you noticed that?
Yeah, no, I think those that functioned in the lifestyle fully that we often equate with being a DC native, particularly people, 65 and under, that lifestyle didn't garner a whole ton of positive outcomes, right? For a multitude of reasons, right? And I think just to answer your question quickly, I think if we were talking about adaptation earlier, if you don't evolve, if you stay the same and the environment hasn't stayed the same, or if you are only functioning in a way in which you are staying stuck in a certain mode, a certain mindset, in a lot of ways that is really attached to a bygone era, then yes, that can be detrimental because you aren't progressing, you aren't moving forward with your environment, with your surroundings. So yeah, that can be detrimental, and I think we've seen that in a lot of ways. But and I think the shift in our environment has happened so incredibly fast, like in the bigger scheme of things, bro. Like what we've seen happen in our city over a 20-year period, has really upended all that we knew. And I think it's going to take another 20 years for us to really see or clearly understand just how detrimental that has been, economically, culturally. And sometimes I think people hold on to things even more so because so much has changed. Like it's like the only thing, like I'm going to hold on to what's familiar. You know, you know what I mean? It's like because it's like this whirlwind. Like you mentioned it. I'm at home and I don't know where I am. Everything that I knew no longer exists. So yeah, I'm gonna hold on to this thing because this is ours and this is familiar. I understand this, and but I hope that again, back to the DC Native Day piece, it really was about not only highlighting and celebrating who we were and what we meant to the establishment of where we are now, but that we will also be a part of where this place is going.
So I think about the future of what it will mean to be a DC native, and what I've seen in some conversations around what it means today. I've seen some people try to put handcuffs on what a DC native is, and we try to freeze a certain period of time and connect that time exclusively to being a DC native. Whereas when I was growing up, the great thing about being from DC was we were so agile in understanding new slang and new ways of moving. And it seems as if the talk around being a DC native, the leaders of those conversations have like frozen a particular period. And if you don't fit into that period, then you don't necessarily have as much input to give, or the door isn't really open for you to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Along the lines in that go-go conversation I was having with a group of people, one of the things that came up just kind of jokingly is that the newer generation of DC people have so much more leverage online, a larger following. They've lived online their entire lives, that if you ask them what the golden years of, let's say, go-go is, right, they might say 2012.
Yeah.
And they got a right to say that, and they got a larger platform to say it on.
But and it's like I think that even in that conversation too, like I see a lot of stuff where dudes if I'm 45 and a dude 55, you know what I'm saying? And even though I might have been, I got more of I see this too, like with me specifically, I got more of an insight on your era. I came up under you.
Yeah.
I was, around people your age at an early age. So I got some familiarity, but like with what they experience, right? And a lot of times when I'm having these conversations, it's like, again, for them, it's a certain thing. They don't even know how we look at it.
Right.
And it's like it's just their generation, the late the mid 80s to the early 90s is like that their window. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying? But I'm like, it was a window after that. Really? Like our window. But our window don't get, what the in terms of, especially in terms of street law, it don't get that same sort of attention, but it ain't stopped. And for a lot of people too, telling the story of DC, you left DC, albeit prison or college, or you moved away. Entertainment, you moved away. So really, you in a time capsule. You don't really know. We ain't been nowhere. That's what I be telling people all the time. I seen the whole progression and been a part of it, been active in the whole progression up to now. So my perspective is a little different, and I be seeing how people's perspective be limited.
And where they're comfortable the most is where they want to keep.
Yeah, keep the conversation. It's like this, but you ain't even see what happened You went away. You went away for 20-some years or whatever. I mean, I'm just saying whatever.
And
it may be.
unfortunately, to my point earlier, sometimes they had to go away, and sometimes being DC to the core. No knock to them, but it had to be a phase. They had to shake that a bit to go where they went, to get what they were trying to get accomplished.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, because it's like anything else. If again, as I'm saying, if you may say it like this, I like to watch a lot of nature stuff, and this one particular time I was watching the lion joint, and it was like drought season. Everything the lions eat, they follow the rain because they eat grass, and the only thing was left was the lions and the elephants. You know what I'm saying? And lions do everything in the world to try to not have to hunt an elephant. And then they didn't even know how to hunt the elephant, or they didn't know how to kill it.
Mm-hmm.
They could surround it or run the herd if
the
they
100
find
men versus the gorilla.
Yeah, that type,
right?
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where people crazy, but it's like but eventually that hunger, that starvation, forced them to have to learn how to hunt the elephant, how to kill, not only hunt it but kill it. Because a lion kills everything the same. They kill milieu. If they kill a buffalo, if they kill a zebra, they kill it. They cut off the windpipe. Well, you can't easily get to an elephant's windpipe.
Right.
And not unlike a hyena or wild dogs, or whatever. Lions don't eat you alive. They kill you first. So and in the midst of them trying to kill an elephant, or the bigger elephants will get time to come and save the baby, right?
Right.
So anyway, saying all to say, I can talk forever about that, but the point I'm making is I see a lot of that as DC natives. We that lion. Our food source, our traditional food sources are gone. They followed the rain. We have to learn how to hunt a new food. And no matter how much we reflect on how many zebras and wildebeest and buffaloes we killed, that don't do nothing to help us in this particular moment. We have to learn how to kill this elephant, if you will, right? Mm-hmm. Like that, and I think that's where we are in this city. If we want to survive and or follow the antelope and the zebra and the buffalo, but they left way a long time ago. There's no way we catching up with them. But that's the dynamic. Either we leave, right?
Follow the rain,
or we learn how to hunt what's here. We learn how to hunt or learn how to kill this new food source. Like, and obviously, I mean, hunt and kill in the
opportunities, jobs,
that's
gaining,
right, business, that's right, becoming high functioning, right? That's it. There is no other option. Getting job competitive, being able to compete. You know what I'm saying? Because the thing about it is, the other things that exist right now, they know how to capture their food source. Right? The elephants know how to store water and to find water. That's all. They good. You know what I'm saying? You competing with them, and that's really where we are, man. I'm all for the nostalgia and the reflection and the reminiscing and all of that. Right? I'm all for that. But we gotta be, how are we gonna be a part? And it's crazy because some of the people that be talking about a lot of that stuff, and this is the thing, a part of when we talk about gentrification, some of it's not all like by force, some of it's by choice, right? Some of them people are doing fine in their lives or whatever. I'm just saying, but they're not even DC residents now. So like, what, we could talk all we want about it's crazy, but this is the way it is. Yeah. So how do we raise, so for Isabella and Sophie and Molly, you know what I mean? They're DC natives, but their DC gonna be a different DC.
So that was gonna be my next thing to you. Again, me walking every day, I walk a lot uptown. Man, parts of Petworth, parts of 16th Street Heights, parts of the Whittier, Brightwood area, I'm up there all the time walking. And I always see little kids on their bikes or playing soccer or playing football. And I always pay attention to the boys.
Yeah.
Because in our generation and the generations before, the boys always were outside, and we kind of defined what the outside culture was. Right? Whether it was sort of rivalries or all out beef.
Right.
Whether it was just competition on the basketball court between neighborhoods, or like I said, all out.
Right.
The culture was typically defined by the boys coming outside and figuring out what was going to be what. And I see these boys, they're Latino boys, Asian boys, white boys, 7, 8, 9 years old, running around. And I'm starting to think, like, what's going to be what will be the place where they convene?
Yeah.
Like, what will be their, I'm struggling to find an example, but what will be their Unifest? What will be their Capital Center? Like, where will they all be convening?
Yeah.
Like,
or what
will
would it mean to be from
physical?
Hanover? You know,
Yeah.
From Edgewood or from Sam Street for my, you know what I'm saying, for real though. What would it mean for them? Is, you know what I'm saying? And it really, but it's a new day, and that's what I'm saying. Like in my you know, there's a new time, and I feel like, again, our role is to prepare them how to hunt in their habitat. Not in the, because it's crazy. You know, the thing about it is, like, a lot of what you see, into your question, like, a lot of what you see is people with an incredible, I'm talking about expert level skill set for something that no longer exists. That is I'm talking about male and female, got an expert level skill set. Some of them the best that ever did it. But that serves them no purpose today.
Yeah.
And so understanding that, and I want people to really think about what we talking about here and sit with that. What's your skill? What are you learning now? What do you know how to do that means something today? And it's gonna mean something tomorrow. So as we talk about the OpenAI and ChatGPT and Neuralink and all of these different things that we all gonna have to continue to evolve. Right? Like, and be able to, cause like, or we start off this conversation talking about the 87-year-old divers. They got a skill set that's still serving them a purpose, right? Today. But the generation behind them is saying that's not gonna be relevant when they, you know, as they coming up. It got to be something else. You know what I'm saying? And they may sit back and say, oh my God, this is going to be lost, but that's the way sort of humanity works. Yeah, bro. And we talked last conversation, we talked about even, you know, something like, we talked about the pandemic and things to protect. We are, and as much as, you know, some of this stuff sucks and it's bad and but it's like, we got to, we need to keep pushing for equity and all of the things. It's not taking nothing and standing to make sure that, but one thing about even our culture only exists if it gets passed on. You understand what I'm saying? It only exists if it's shared through people. You know what I mean? I'm scared of the stat. You know, think about it. Everything that got a monument, what? It's gone.
It's gone.
You feel me? So like, you know, how are we furthering? How are we pushing our culture forward? You know, where, and our people that frequent that culture, where are they? What are they doing? You made a hell of a point. What are they leading?
Yeah, what are they leading?
When you said, you just said, it was like, man, but it ain't even just about people having a job, but like decision-making roles. Yeah. Bro, we scarce. Yeah. And then, again, back to black men, and we could talk about that forever, but like.
And if they are from here, do they wear that cap in that role?
Yeah.
Do they think from that perspective?
And it's so rare that some people had it.
Right. That's what I'm getting at.
But that's what DC Natives Day was about. And I ain't gonna lie, I will stand on this. I know this. Since we did that, bro, we put pride back in being from here. We was getting no looked.
Yeah.
Even people used to be, I'm a native Washingtonian, you know, the DC Native, that's a real thing. Yeah, like, people say that. And I'm for real, I be like, I ain't shrinking in 2025. Like, we put that back, we put that feeling back in. I'm from DC. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? That means something. And it does, and it continue to. And but we, like, for real, but we are becoming so rare, bro, in our own place. And I think even people that ain't from here need to feel a way about that. You know what I mean? Because sometimes whether people say it or not, that's why they came here. That's why they love this place. Because it was special. It was different. We were different. We the heartbeat of this place, man. And that's why it pains me that so many of us, you know, continue to be in this perpetual cycle of trauma and struggle. But, you know, not all of us, man. We gonna make inroads and continue to move the needle, man.
Yeah,
you know?
my hope is that in the future, moving forward, and hopefully we can grandfather in some of the previous generations of culture that developed into what we know as being that sort of DC native standard, right?
Yeah.
My hope is that in the future, saying you're from DC does not just give you a chance to connect to something that is social or cultural, but that it's also something that signals to outsiders that you have a high level of character or integrity or whatever it may come to when it comes to how we define the products that we put out.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Excellence, man.
You know, when you see the migration that New Yorkers made down south, when they moved to Charlotte, they still talk about being from New York. If they move to Atlanta, they move to Columbia, South Carolina, wherever they go, right? And there are people in those new environments that embrace them and almost kind of push them in leadership because that's the New York person. We've seen that happen, right? Yeah. And I hope that for DC people that we can either literally or figuratively export that feeling when we go places.
That's right.
That we set a standard around excellence and what our product is. And it's not enough to be like, we was the first ones wearing this or we the coolest. Now we got to have something of substance now to be able to show real value. So when we walk in the room, we can benefit other natives that come behind us, but that we can also look back and say we produce things on a national, international level. And a part of the fire that burns in me to produce at that level was the fact that I came from DC.
That's right. And that is true. You learn how to kill that elephant.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Hey, I want to, before we close out, because I got this hoodie on and it made me think about it. I've been doing some work recently with the fire cadets, and typically those participants are coming out of DCPS.
Yes, sir.
And the fire department has done a really good job over generations of bringing up our own as first responders, and that's been a real viable path for us.
Yeah.
Like, I got friends who have gone on to do great things who came through that program straight out of high school. So I wanted to shout them out,
shout out to them,
for the effort that they're leading. Because I was over there with this recent class, and there's some great young people in there. And honestly, in all the rooms that I'm in, going in that room really got me charged up again. Like, there's some kids out here that's leading the way. Sometimes you get discouraged when you're in the rooms that you're not sure if this is going to be the room where it's going to produce good fruit. Yeah. But they got some good fruit over there. Yeah. And also with this hoodie, Food on the Stove, man, John Tate, firefighter himself.
Yeah, I saw him recently too.
Yeah. We had him on the show years and years ago for a whole different reason. But he's got some events coming up this May that I want to highlight real quick. He's got an ER summit. It's going to be out at iNova in Fairfax on May 23rd, where he's hosting a bunch of first responders in the region to come out and to get some workshops around professional development. Oh, nice. And also personal development. And I'll be at that doing some work with him. Okay. He's got a gala the next night called Dress Blue on May 24th. And on his site, foodonthestove.org, I think it is, you can get all the information. But yeah, I wanted to make sure I shout that out.
Shout out to John Tate, man. Yeah. Shout out to DC Speed too. I want to say that.
There we go.
Bro. Shout out my baby run with them, man.
Yeah, Sophie.
Shout out, man. We first track meet for the outdoor season is this Saturday.
Flow So.
Yeah, man. So yeah, man, for sure. Shout out to all the first responders too. You know what I mean? That I don't think they get enough credit, and I also would include our violence interrupters.
Yes.
In that They are that.
Yes, yes.
Sure enough.
For sure, for sure. So thank you guys as always for watching Heart of the City. Our job, I'm not even going to say our goal anymore. Our job is to make sure that we are getting you to think and to elevate your thought process. We believe that everyone has the opportunity to be in leadership, and these discussions are about how leaders think and how we should approach life on a personal and professional level. So until next time, thank you guys again. Like the channel, subscribe to the channel, share the channel with a friend,
Yes,
and we'll see you soon enough.
Peace and love.
Peace and love.